Good to see you, Keto. Just having some juice
Just juice.
today.
Just juice today. What are we drinking?
Another delightful, enjoyable little Napa Valley wine. It's a 100%
Always
Cabernet
with the
Franc.
Napa Valley wines.
There's good wine from everywhere.
There is good wine from everywhere.
Yeah. Even if you think you hate a region, like there's probably some good wine from there.
Yeah, I know that. Like as soon as I said that I didn't prefer Napa Valley wines, I knew that you would bring me a lot of them. So I'm happy to be proven wrong, though. These have been great so far.
Yeah. And we'll continue to branch out and show everything around the world. But it is that's the fun of the wine, right? Like digging in and figuring out who makes what and why and where and when.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this wine. Obviously, we know where it's from, but what are the grapes? How is it made? Yeah, give me the rundown.
Cabernet Franc. So Cabernet Franc, typically used as like a blending grape, even back in Bordeaux. Like you're not gonna, a few regions will make like 100% Cabernet Franc in the Loire Valley, but in Bordeaux, it's typically for blended. So it found its way to to Napa Valley, kind of again to be like a blending grape, right? To kind of make those Bordeaux blend-esque experiences that so many early on Napa producers were really, really trying to be. We want to emulate that.
There are a good amount of like just Cabernet Franc though, right? Or is it only used as a blending grape?
Somewhat more recently, it became more trendy to do that. But there's not a ton of it planted. So it also becomes a very useful kind of like tool for the winery to be like a special offering, something seasonal, something direct to consumer only, wine club membership, that kind of thing. So not always like sold out into the market because they're just not going to be able to make a ton of it.
Got it. Okay.
So it's always been kind of around and a piece and an important part in Napa Valley. It really is an important grape there, but it just doesn't have the spotlight that Cabernet Sauvignon has.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So this was started in the early 90s. John Scupney and his wife Tracy. And their whole idea was to do the other grapes in Napa Valley. They did not come in with the intention of making Chardonnay, Cabernet, or Cabernet Bordeaux style blends. They focused in on Cabernet Franc and Chenin Blanc, two wines more famous in the Loire Valley, especially as 100% varietal.
Do you like Chenin Blanc?
I have a predilection. Towards Chenin Blanc.
I never would have guessed.
Yeah, I very few of them do I ever turn down.
Fair enough.
They're kind of like a brother and a sister grape, in a fashion. And they decided to work with these especially for like the market. Early 90s, what we know of in Napa Valley, what people were making at that point in time, was kind of an interesting play.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. So you said they're mostly Cabernet Franc and Chenin Blanc.
Yeah, just the two.
Just those two. So is this 100% Cab Franc then?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yep.
Nice. So what's the name of the producer again?
Lang and Reed.
Lang and Reed.
Yeah.
Cool. So where is this wine from specifically? So
their winery is Napa Valley. This one is 100% Cabernet Franc from a more or less a central spot. They're Sugarloaf Vineyards.
Okay.
They do have another expression, another tier of Cabernet Franc that is probably more broadly sourced. It might have some of the fruit from that vineyard, but might also come from a handful of other Cab Franc selections throughout the valley to create that blend to get to that price point as well, because there's a pretty vast difference.
Yeah, got it. I see. So my simplistic brain went, if it is Cabernet Franc, it must be from one specific vineyard, but you're saying that there's kind of a tiered like way that they do this. Some are from specific vineyards, some are from multiple vineyards in an area, and then some are from like the Napa Valley in general, but could all still be Cabernet Franc.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because some vineyards are so expensive, like you're paying up for that fruit. You don't want to blend it into anything else.
I see.
If you can use that name, if you can use that single vineyard name to elevate, your product and the sale of it.
Yeah.
But then ultimately these are businesses that need to keep the lights on. So using available fruit that still falls within the grader
Right.
Napa Valley. So
I
yeah,
see.
there is a lot of like strategies and tiers and reasons for style of production and
Got
where it goes into the market.
Got it. That makes sense. So I'm gonna do this. Let's give it a taste.
Yeah.
We've already tasted a little
I
bit,
hope
but here we are. Give it a taste, and we can go through some of the tasting notes. I think this is a really interesting wine, but I also don't know if I can get any of the tasting notes or.
Yeah, initially coming up in the trade and learning, like Cabernet Franc struck me. Like there was something to it that was somewhat unique, even though it like has 100% varietal and just interesting and like hits on many levels. Because like this style, there's a good amount of fruit on the nose, but it doesn't hit first.
Yeah, it feels more. I don't know. People always say earthy, and so I've just like parroted that because, like, I feel like I've tasted it decent enough to be like, oh, earthy, but I guess is earthy because it's not just like you lick a rock or you eat a bunch of dirt, right? Earthy is what, like mushrooms, like I don't know, like root vegetables. Is that earthy? What consists of
underbrush, dust, turned earth.
Dust does not sound like a great like thing to have in wine.
But it explains a type of earth, right? Like if you've got a really fresh, mulchy, like super healthy earth versus an older, dustier, and then you know, sometimes those characteristics, if those leaves have been hidden under a bush for a long time and they're a little bit, you know,
fermented
leaves
leaves,
decaying and moist versus just a freshly fallen kind of leaf. And I think you know, earthiness does a lot of time kind of go into herbaceousness as well. Like those kind of end up like lumped together, even though categorically they could be a little bit different. So some of that like green herb or some of this, like there's a little bit of like tobacco leaf. There's a little bit of like scar ash characteristic going on here.
Okay. Herbaceous is lots of strong herb scents and tastes. Is that like the... I don't know, a very simplistic way of describing it?
Some can be very distinctly categorized with like grassiness or jalapeno. Some are thyme.
Back
some
to the
are.
You're really trying to get that jalapeno and hay.
It exists, and you know, you drink some of those examples of New Zealand Sauv Blanc, and it is like jalapeno is all over it. But green bell pepper is a marker and an indicator in Cabernet Franc.
Yeah,
you know, and as being the one of the parent grapes to Cabernet Sauvignon, you can get those green bell pepper and herbaceous components.
Yeah,
depending on how you construct it.
I definitely think I've had green. Like there was one, I think it was like a South American wine or something. It was from Chile, and I smelled it. Yes, that is what it was. That's exactly what it was. And I smelled it and I drank it and I'm like, I am drinking a green pepper. This is super weird. Yes. It was kind of like the salsa verde Doritos, the Doritos in the green bag. I was like, this is just Doritos is what this basically is.
Some examples it can be really, really overdone. I mean, that was a very clear marker for a while of a Chilean wine. You're like, it was so green like that. A lot of people have gotten a handle on it, so many are getting better. But some vintages, it still just really, really pops.
Interesting.
So
that's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one, I guess like now that you're mentioning it, yeah, it is a little dirt-ish, dust-ish. Not the kind of dirt and dust we have here in Vegas, which is very dry and not much grows. But like definitely understand at least what you're talking about when you say earthy, dusty, dirt sort of thing, right? It's kind of like the stuff that grows from there, maybe naturally, that, but in a good way, I guess.
Yeah, and dustiness sometimes can lean into tannins because it's more of a powdery finished tannin than a super like grippy, wildly impactful tannin.
This doesn't feel super tannic. Is that right?
No, this example isn't.
Okay.
And I don't think Cab Franc is known to be like wickedly tannic.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because this is pretty smooth, That's maybe a little bit of tannins in there.
There is for sure, but
I feel
softer.
I feel like you're going to tell me I'm wrong when I say this next thing, but it doesn't feel like it has a lot of acid.
Maybe
a little bit.
It's sometimes harder to judge in reds, right, than in whites, because whites don't necessarily have the tannins, and they might be lower in alcohol. So there might be other things where high acid triggers more in a white wine. I would. It's fair to say that this isn't high acid.
Okay, that's good. At least I feel like you were building me up to be like, you were totally wrong. No, it's super high acid.
We're at least medium plus, because like there's a lingering sensation with this that keeps it fresh. Like there's a certain kind of lightness to this.
Yeah, there is a lightness to it. I agree. Yeah, maybe that's what my brain is translating some of the acid to be, is kind of a lightness.
Because if it was low acid, it would just feel broader, and it would just a little more weighty, and
broader and weighty.
Yeah, just I will bring you the really bad Napa Valley wine one of these times. So we'll keep it in a brown bag, but we'll give you that flabby, lacking definition style one of these days as well. Fun.
I'm going to tell everyone online what it is.
Yeah.
And that you brought it.
Wasn't me.
So I guess, like, is there a certain style that this is categorized as? Because when I think Napa Valley, I tend to think pretty big, bold, lots of fruit, maybe even like high tannin. And this feels a bit more balanced. The earthiness, I do taste a little bit of the fruit, but it's not super fruit forward, punchy sort of thing. Not a ton of tannins. So again, like, I don't know, I'm not great at blind tasting at all, but I would not clock this as a Napa wine immediately.
And I think this does stand out from a lot of other, like, 100% Cabernet Francs from some producers in the Valley, right? Like this is not a wine constructed within the trends. This is a wine constructed with thought, kind of like more to tradition, and kind of like really thinking about the Loire Valley and the birthplace of Cabernet Franc, and stylistically trying to create something that can exist in that world and in that realm. Because Napa Valley, it continues to go through trends, and I think there's a healthy trend in Napa Valley right now. But it started out very Bordelais, right? And there was more earthiness and herbaceousness, and then some people started creating like real powerhouse ripe fruit, and these were getting some really great acclaim and making scores, and you saw prices for these, so people came in and like wanted to emulate that style more and become more rich and opulent and hedonistic, which you still kind of expect out of certain wines. And then some people always continue to make more with a reference or deference to tradition, and always kind of looked at like where history had come from in the Bordelais, do with some of their wines. And then some people are kind of pushing back that direction, a little bit more freshness, as it were.
Got it. Interesting.
But even a touch of plenty of Bordelais have pushed into modernity to an extent, using technology, optical sorters, other things to get the as much ripeness and extraction and depth out of a grape berry as well.
Interesting. So we're talking about, like, you're saying that Cabernet Franc, the birthplace of it is in the Loire Valley. When I think of France, when I think of, maybe Spain, Italy, those areas, I think a lot of people refer to that as the old world, right? And I would assume that the wines there, at least the style of it, hasn't really changed too much in the past. I don't know, 200 years or something. Maybe that's completely wrong, but is there well, first of all, like what was the difference or is the difference between old and new world, and how did that naming structure come up?
Yeah, so I mean, even that itself is relatively new. 70s, 80s, a English wine writer, reviewer, really important, influential person in the whole business and trade overall, Hugh Johnson, as he was kind of like postulating and talking more and explaining more, and especially after 76 and the tasting of Paris and stuff like that.
That was that like super famous
blind tasting
where like Napa or something won a bunch.
Yep. Chateau Montelena and Stag's Leap.
Got it. Okay.
Their Chardonnay and their Cabernet beat out the French examples.
Like that's like the historic.
Yeah. And
okay.
A lot of controversy. Some of the judges thought that they had been tricked or fooled and didn't want their names attached to it. And were like super angry about it all.
Isn't it? It's a blind tasting though, right?
Indeed, but they still, had their pride stepped on,
I see.
in a fashion, and it was...
Well, none of them are becoming master somms then if they can't decipher the two.
Yeah, it's true, right? Yeah, that's why I never got there.
It's okay, I'm not there either.
Yeah.
But I'm a lot further away than you are, so...
It's a trip. It's a trip. But he in trying to write about styles and talk about emerging regions and other places and stuff, kind of was looking at like tradition and modernity and like history and culture and new trends and started helping separate that with old world versus new world. And so old world had tradition, had the culture, had, hundreds, if not thousands of years of history. And there was a real, interest and push for terroir and tradition that they made in that region, how they use the barrels, how long things were aged, what kind of blends.
There's a much more strict structure to it.
Yeah, and when you look at like wine laws, like those that were becoming super super important, and that in the 1900s in Europe, that was very strict on the definition of grapes you could grow, how to grow them, how to age them, how whereas those laws started coming to life, like the first American AVAs, American viticulture areas, didn't start until the early 80s, 1981, and it was purely a geographic designation. So you could plant whatever grape you wanted.
Whatever you wanted. It was just here's the geography of the thing.
So
I see.
People had maybe a specific chateau or a Bordeaux style wine in mind, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. So this is a great area for Cabernet. I'm going to plant in this fashion, and I'm going to try and make a Bordeaux style wine. But
when you say Bordeaux, is that just like all of Bordeaux?
Yeah.
Okay. So like all of the Bordeaux region in one, because there's obviously different east-west bank.
Yeah. And more or less the people that make it and everything that live there and whatnot.
They are the Bordeaux people. Is that how you describe it?
Yeah, and people in the region. Okay. So,
got it.
So you go into this trying to emulate some of those chateaux and some of those blends. And ultimately in Napa Valley out here, though, you're very sunny, you're very warm. Sun and warmth makes a ripe berry.
Right.
Ripe berries have more sugar. More sugar is more alcohol.
And that's not what it's like in Bordeaux.
Yeah, it can be maritime climate and like rainy during even the summer and clouds. And so you struggle more to get to ripeness.
I see.
Whereas in Napa Valley, a lot of the time the ripeness is just kind of given to you.
Yeah. So was Napa Valley then trying to fight the ripeness to get a grape or a wine that's similar to what Bordeaux does?
They potentially initially were trying to pick a little bit more underripe to make that style, but then started just letting maybe potentially what is the terroir of Napa Valley, like the climate speak to it and become that riper style, and in that become a bigger, fuller bodied, wine. And then, people's palates latch onto that, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
and especially when they grow up with that and know that, and that's the most familiar thing to them. Like so many people have only had domestic wines and not
Right.
really even experienced anything else from around the world.
So then, like, does it make sense to then say that around, this is the 1970s, that when the Paris
76.
tasting
Yeah.
uproar was? So late 70s, maybe even before that, was the type of wine being produced in Napa Valley versus Bordeaux a lot closer together?
I think so overall at
Okay.
that point in time. You could never, the ripeness was always going to be there. But I think in preceding or following generations, they started embracing that ripeness more.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So essentially what you're saying is they're a little bit closer together. You had a little bit more ripeness in the Napa Valley wines.
Mhm.
Then what happened?
Napa Valley could begin to stand on its own.
Uh-huh.
So Bordeaux was famous and had been famous for hundreds of years.
Uh-huh.
Napa Valley is emerging. So now you come out and you win this competition and people have never heard of Napa Valley, you know, where in California is this thing? So as Napa Valley grew and became able to stand on its own as like this recognized region in the world, they really honed in on, you know, there's an influx of people coming and buying land and growing grapes, and some people that are doing that don't know anything about
Yeah.
the old world or Bordeaux or that as inspiration. They're coming to Napa Valley to make wine, and what they find they enjoy is fuller, more robust, more, you know, allowing that ripeness to shine through. So there is, I think, an initial point where they kind of wanted to start out together and then, you know, started going in separate fashion, and verbiage of old world versus new world can still be really apparent in some examples.
Yeah. So when did that start to really happen? When did they really start to pull apart? And was it like, I don't know, was it the 90s? Was it the early 2000s? Like, when did it really start to get these like bigger fruity bombs in Napa?
They always were kind of different, as it were. But yeah, things accelerated with for Napa in particular, kind of with cult wines. You know,
I see.
Wasn't too long after 76 that you finally saw producers put out in retail for sale examples of wines that were over $100 in that late 70s, early 80s. And that was really, really expensive, right? And then, you know, there was kind of a proliferation of wines in that fashion. You watched it grow from like, you know, 200 wineries to 500 wineries to a couple thousand today.
I've heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but you can tell me. I've heard that what they've been trying to do in Napa is produce wines that you don't have to cellar for as long, that are more ready to drink, I guess. Is that like, I would imagine that big explosion in number of wineries, people selling wine, they're trying to move their product faster. And I would imagine the ones that are ready to drink more or sooner are the ones that people might like buy a little bit more. So they have to buy a case, like put it in a wine fridge for 5 years or something, and then it'd be at its peak. Like, did that play into how Napa evolved, or is it something completely different?
Definitely parts of it as well, because not everybody likes old wine. Like it distinctly tastes different. And then historically part of
old wine or old world wine?
Both actually.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because even like old Napa, like a lot of that ripe upfront fruit flavor, like it starts tiring out and falling off after a couple of years.
Right.
So if you really want that robust fruit, you kind of you drink it immediately.
I see.
it evolves, it changes, the fruit falls off. So if you drink it 10 years later, it's not going to give you the same impression it would
I
have
see.
2-3 years in.
So not as like bright, not as fruity.
I mean, it can still absolutely be wonderful and delicious, but then not, and
Yeah.
then someone with production, like you need a certain balance in the wine. Like wine needs acidity to age. That's like the backbone of its structure in order to go the distance and go like a really, really long time. So
Interesting.
if you're pushing ripeness, your acidity is dropping off,
Right.
and your sugar level is going up,
Right.
to give you that huge, huge, big upfront fruit. So if you don't even have enough acidity, the wine itself might not even age.
Got it. Interesting. I always thought it was tannins in red wine that like dictated aging potential.
I mean,
But is it
it all plays in, but like I think
the main thing is acidity?
even for whites, because there's
Right.
acidity really is the backbone, and then everything
Got
else
it.
that will play into it to help make sure. But not every wine is constructed to age, right?
Right.
And if you construct it with that immediacy, things are going to fall off that are enjoyable in that youthful structure
Got
that
it.
don't exist later on in life with the wine.
Got it. Interesting. Okay.
I mean, this one itself, this is a 2019.
Yeah. I mean, I could say it tastes older than that, but I don't know if I'd really know what I'm talking about if I said that.
But there's still so much like liveliness to it. There's still like freshness. There's still, I don't feel like the decay of the fruit. The color is still holding to the edge really, really well. It hasn't like started to brick in color or fade really.
Yeah. I also forgot we're in 2026.
We officially.
Yeah.
It
You said this
happened.
is 2019.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, it was only a couple years ago.
No.
The pandemic was really a time skip.
I know.
We time skipped like 3 years.
Well,
so.
and everything's been faster ever since then
Yeah.
as well. Like, yeah, we're well into closer to 10 years old than that.
Don't remind me. Anyway, so this like it feels more, I guess, as you might describe it, old world, right?
Yeah.
What else makes up an old versus new world wine? Because you were talking about ripeness, but is that the only thing that kind of makes up a old versus new world wine?
No, not necessarily. Old world did kind of try and reference tradition, culture, wine making practices, that there would be a different structure in the tannin, a different structure in the acidity, a different level of residual sugar and perceived sweetness, that there is more earth expression, more minerality, more of that classic, kind of terroir expression, that everything that the very mystical part of wine, that like it's the terroir. If it wasn't, and some grapes, there's a lot to it. It's not just something to dismiss and make light of, but terroir is a tough subject in and of itself.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, I guess walk me through what different techniques a winemaker could use to make it more, quote unquote, old world feeling or tasting.
A lot of work done in the vineyard. So potentially keeping more of a canopy. So if the grapes receive more shade and less sunlight, your irrigation.
Interesting.
If you dry farm versus irrigate, how much you irrigate, how much water you give to that grape, or how much you let it struggle. A lot of like European DOs or appellations, geographic spots prohibit or highly restrict any irrigation.
Oh, interesting.
So employing a technique like like that. And then also how long you allow the fruit to hang on the vine and ripen,
Got it.
as you monitor, the sugar levels and the acidity and how those change in the grape, those kind of techniques. And then in the cellar as well, if you fully embrace all of modernity and science and everything that it gives you, you can make such a squeaky clean wine, that it's
Got it.
perceptibly perfect and replicable. You can do it every vintage, but maybe
Got it.
what some people would lack a little soul.
Yeah. So when you say squeaky clean, are you meaning like there's a lot of clarity in each of the different kind of flavors or scents that are in the wine, and they're very like separated?
I think I mean like you get so specific, like between optical sorters and destemmers and the temperature controls and stuff like that, like you can end up with like this end product of berries that from a distance looks like caviar. Like they're so perfect. There's not a single blemish. There's not a single leaf. There's nothing in this container but the purest of berries, right? And so whether or not that is too far, like does that really reflect the terroir or the place? But stylistically, if that's what you're looking for and that's what you want, that's what you can accomplish,
right?
So that kind of just.
And how would that reflect in the actual like taste of the wine? Is it just a one specific taste, or is, like how does that come out?
It can turn into a whole complexity of because stem inclusion or whole cluster, or
I see,
is and it's not employed in every region of the world, and it's not great with every single grape out there in the world, but those kind of things, they can affect alcohol, they can affect color, they can affect flavor.
So you're more like choosing exactly the color and the flavor in the sense that you want,
correct, versus
quote unquote the terroir that gives you what you get, sort of thing. I see.
Correct.
That's super interesting.
Because some people will say like, hey, everything is made in the vineyard, and then other people will employ more actual wine practices to influence the style, flavor, character that they're looking for.
Interesting. That's super interesting. So you can guide it. So it's after the grape is picked, there's a lot more guiding of what flavors and scents and colors and things are get into the final product, essentially.
Right. And when you have this set example of like Napa and Bordeaux, right? Like Bordeaux had already been making styles of wine for hundreds of years.
Right.
So they already had like their formula dialed in. Napa Valley coming on board and being new initially wanted to emulate them, but then also started embracing and changing and fixing their style. But then, you also see that kind of come back across the sea, and Bordeaux see the successes of Napa Valley and like, well, what if we do, because I think Bordeaux was actually using optical sorters or sorting tables before Napa Valley was. So they, again, they started embracing some of the new technology and seeing that they could, in some instances, trump vintage, right? Like they could now have that card to play over really, really bad weather and make a viable product.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that if you're a
business?
If you're a business, right? You have to sell wine at the end of the day. Like, I would imagine that no winemaker wants to just throw out a vintage or skip it or have a product that people will remember as that was not so great, so I'm not going to go back to that winemaker again because I didn't like that. Right.
And that's where Napa probably latched onto some of that immediacy,
right?
And it's
things that are a bit more trendy.
Yeah. Just to make a consistent style, where not as much vintage variation, and they're blessed with a ton of sunlight and a ton of warm temperature. So creating that consistency was potentially easier than some of the vintage variation you see in Bordeaux. at least used to see for sure.
Right. So you're saying some of that like started to come back over to, in this case, Bordeaux, right? I'm assuming that this is the case as well, not just for France, but also for Italy, also for Spain. Did some of that like come over to those regions as well, or is it mostly Bordeaux that it came over to?
You can see a region, especially when you're talking about like the big six international varietals, right? Like not so much of like indigenous, like local, highly localized kind of stuff, because you can see the explosion of super Tuscans in the late 70s as well, right? Sassicaia, Tignanello, a handful of those ones embracing Cabernet Merlot, in some cases Syrah, in Tuscany, and not always going like fully opulent, but bringing in some of those more modern winemaking techniques. Little touches here and there in Rioja in Spain, doing that as well, because there's a very traditional style of Rioja, and then there's a more like modern, opulent style within there as well.
I see. Some of these started to come back, basically all to all over Europe. But was it Napa that? Because you said that they were already doing some of this stuff in Bordeaux, right? So did it like how did this exchange of technology or like winemaking actually work? Was it actually Napa that influenced Europe, or was that already there and people just started using it more?
We have a ton of French winemakers who started becoming flying winemakers. Like they would travel the world, and so they were able to, without any kind of like legal restrictions, come out to California and make wine. And
I see.
Harking back to, I mean, there's some real influential French figures that Andre Chatelchef, really, really early on in Napa's history that helped influence it. And then a lot of Americans traveled to Europe and staged or worked vintages. And it's still very traditional to do that. And like winemakers and people really trying to hone the train, go to multiple regions around the world before settling into their spot.
I see. Okay. So that's interesting, because so what you're saying is like it's super restrictive in a place like Bordeaux to make certain wines. So some of these winemakers went other places and they were able to basically make whatever they wanted.
Yeah. Wild West. Right. And then even if they came back home, there were still some of those techniques that they could kind of like embrace and bring back. And I could still
put into it.
I'm still fitting the appellation of Pomerol. I'm still, but I can tweak in this fashion. And I know you big opulent kind of like fruit forward styles was not only California and Napa Valley. I mean, Australia was pretty infamous for that as well. Argentina, the style of Malbec that they were making, some of the Chilean wines and stuff like that. So,
Interesting. That's pretty cool. So like, I guess like what we're really saying is, as these producers and winemakers have started to cross-pollinate, old world versus new world isn't really as much of a thing anymore. There's a lot more crossover.
The lines have blurred a lot. And there's stylistic characters within each region that are super, super important, but they can be emulated in a fashion. You can never recreate the exact same place, right? There are some things that just, Nebbiolo is a great grape and example of something that just doesn't travel. Like people grow it in other places of the world and they make fine examples, but nowhere else so far in the world has made what hundreds and hundreds of years of Piedmont has done to create Barolo, Barbaresco, even like Gattinara and Gemme, and with some of these other, what happens to Nebbiolo in Piedmont so far thus far hasn't been replicated in that fashion almost anywhere else in the world.
And is that like, we were talking about the mysticism of terroir, of the soil, right? But like, is that what it is? Is it that the soil there just doesn't exist anywhere else, or the climate there doesn't exist anywhere else, or that combination doesn't exist anywhere else?
Big parts of that. Big parts of it is like it's such a specific grape, such a specific region, such. There was a period in the Barolo Wars, if you will.
Barolo Wars.
Yeah, where people, some of the younger generation went abroad, saw, observed, learned other new, more modern winemaking techniques, and wanted to bring that back.
Got it.
Home. And there's some pretty infamous like family battles that happened between like, father and son about thoughts and what tradition did. And we find that, at one point, it needed 30 years before you wanted to drink it because it was so high in tannin and the winemaking techniques. And then we see that some of the modernity is a little bit too much for the grape as well. It doesn't make it as long lived, but you find that kind of like
sweet spot
touch in between where you can lean on a couple of these techniques. Just dropping fruit, green harvesting, as they call it, was, you couldn't get the price that you needed to really, really stay in business. So you kept every single berry on the vine for a long, long time. And so you didn't always have the highest quality fruit. So some people came back and started like, well, what if we green harvest and cut? And some of the old guys were like, how do you throw away fruit? That's money right there.
Right. So wait, green harvesting is taking fruit off the vine, like as it's not ripe yet. It's not mature yet. You're taking fruit off of the vine. So what, like the flavor concentrates in other grapes on the vine?
Correct. It puts the rest of its energy, because a vine naturally is extremely vigorous. It just wants to grow and grow and grow and make a million berries. But it's
nature, right?
Yeah, like exactly. Right. You restrict those berries, and then it pushes that much extra energy into the berries it has left.
I see.
Because it's like, I really got to survive. So now I got to make the best fruit.
Got it. That makes sense. Also, when you say Bordeaux Wars, I think of like, I don't know, it's like a mix of Italian families, but like samurai style with like flags. And then they're all kind of marching out with like grapevine clippers or something. And they're about to like go head to head and like clash.
Part of the pride of Barolo were these huge old Slovenian oak casks, and a son actually damaged, like took it, I don't remember, with a chainsaw or axe or something, but like
really
destroyed an old cask to say we need to use new barrels and smaller barrels, and kind of.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it just. For a period there, we talked about it as though it was very, very dramatic, and there really was this huge kind of thing, and some of it was controversial at the time. But we've seen the adoption of the techniques in both ways, and people saying like, we went too far, we went too modern with this stuff, and it does benefit from some of these practices and stuff like that. So
they kicked that son out. He went to Chicago, and his name was Al Capone.
He stayed in Barolo. Yeah, but I don't know if him and the dad spoke much after that point.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So there was even for a very, very long time with one of the big testing entities out there, like the Quartermaster Sommeliers. It was when you're doing your blind tasting, there was a statement that you made in your conclusion if this was old world or new world. That has been taken off of the exams at this point. So
is it too difficult to tell now?
With some of the examples that they use, yeah, like some of the I don't know.
Would this be one of those examples where it's too hard to tell?
This is a great new world Cabernet Franc that you don't. I don't know. You got to figure out how to kind of is this old world enough, and going back and forth, but getting to the fact that this is just a well-made Cabernet Franc,
right,
is potentially ultimately, I don't know, depends on the marketing. If that's more important than being able to know that this is Chinon from the Loire Valley,
right?
It's tough. I mean, we've spent so much time legally protecting so many of these words that they're important. So to call this a Chinon is not a disservice to it, but
is Chinon, is that protected as well? Because Because champagne is protected, right?
Yeah, I mean, champagne like definitely protects it much more vigorously.
Is the most protected.
Yeah, like they really have gone through a lot of steps to protect that word. And you even look at like somewhere like Prosecco too. Like they nowhere near that extent, but they consciously made the decision of going back to a traditional name of the grape used for Prosecco production. Like they went back to Glera. It used to just kind of be, oh, it's the Prosecco grape and we make Prosecco.
Right.
But there was a very conscious like, well, actually Prosecco is a pretty important brand. So let's go back to this traditional name of Glera for the grape for, purposes.
Got it. That's interesting. So how do you find an old world style new world wine? So like I would imagine that somebody who might be interested in tasting something like this, you go into, especially like a big box like wine store, I would imagine it'd be really difficult to pick one out. Is there a way that like I might be able to know that, oh, this is from Napa Valley, but it's done in the old world style? Or do you just have to like do research beforehand?
Unfortunately, it is going to be more of the latter on that one. At least these, they're good enough to write on the back label, right? Like the clone from the Loire Valley in origin, situated to this site. So they're
I see.
consciously
They're calling it out.
referencing that in a fashion.
Another
keywords like if a producer is talking about huge, ripe, jammy flavors, that's not going to lead to. So if the shelf talker, right. It's giving you those kind of descriptors. So, but ultimately, yeah, it does. It's going to have to come down to some form of familiarity with the wine.
I see. So like the descriptors for New World would be kind of what you said, right? Bolder, fruity, fruit forward, maybe on the description of it. And then if it is quote unquote old world, it would be a little bit more earthy, a little bit more, I don't know, what other descriptors would you use?
Alcohol level can play into that too. Like
higher or lower?
Higher. If it's higher. Okay. That's potentially more New World, more modern in style. If it's lower, that's potentially, and we're talking about, half percentages here, right? Like 14 and below could be considered more old world in style. 14 and above could be considered more New World in style for red wines.
Got it. Okay. So you're looking for the flavor notes, scent notes, alcohol level, and that'll at least give you some direction as to whether it might be a little bit more New World versus Old World in the traditional definition of it.
Yeah, that should start a thread of indicators as to what this wine might want to be.
Got it. Interesting. So if, maybe last question, if somebody wanted to try this wine specifically here in Vegas, is it easy to find in a restaurant or a store?
Probably not so much retail, but restaurants on the Strip usually represent a style of wine like this.
Cool. And, I would assume that you go to a restaurant on the Strip, it's a restaurant that has a decent enough wine list. They're going to have a somm or someone that knows the wine list well to be able to steer you in the direction of, something a little bit brighter and fresher versus something that's a little bit more like old world.
Yeah. Even up against another like California example of Cab Franc, like this one will drink this fashion, that one will drink this fashion.
Right. And what would you pair with this?
Man, I would love a duck dish, maybe like a lamb of sorts. If it has like that little bit more like gaminess, or even like a softer steak. So this would be a little bit more in that filet category, not necessarily like ribeye or tomahawk, but in that softer. And if it had like a flavor, like a peppercorn sauce or something like that, like a steak frite, I mean, this would
Making
be
me
like
hungry.
I know, but I mean, great.
I'm sorry I asked the question. Now you're making me
Yeah,
hungry.
because we can keep going. But yeah, there's a handful of things. Even like a muffaletta sandwich, something like that, right? Like, yeah. There's a lot going on in this wine, and I think it's that right amount of acidity keeps freshness. It's not overriding in this like hit you in the punch you in the face fruit kind of character. It's delightful.
So it makes actually when you said not necessarily like a ribeye or a tomahawk, but something more like a fillet, like for some reason that resonated with me because this doesn't feel super strong and punchy. It's more balanced. It's it's got a little bit more balance and complexity between the fruit and the earthiness and kind of everything in between. So I would imagine that you wouldn't want something that negates or cancels that stuff out.
Yeah. There, even down to like chemistry and stuff like that, the fat in a steak helps with the tannin impression on your palate. So really big, tannic, bold, fruity wine and a also fattier cut of steak.
Got it.
That's why some of those kind of like work well.
Will it lessen the amount of tannins?
It helps clear the tannin, like the fat in a fashion combined with the tannins in your palate and chemistry.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Lots of chemistry. Lots of chemistry in everything that we do. But
no, more and more stuff. Like I mean, the way they break down wines these days, talking about terpenes and monoterpenes and pyrazines, and
that's a foreign language.
It is, and like 50 years ago, it wasn't something you spoke about in that fashion in wine.
Yeah.
But these days, it is dialed down to and so many people putting the exact not only pH of the wine, but even like the TA, the total acidity perceptible of the wine and stuff like that. So
are they even doing that in, old world, quote unquote, old world places like France and Italy and Spain?
They always tracked it and they always knew it, but it wasn't, but now, especially on like websites and tech sheets and information like that, like pretty much everybody will list those kind of things out there now.
Interesting.
Yeah. Rather than just give you a blurb of like blackberry and, pretty dreams of mountain forests.
Right.
Those
are always
the best descriptors.
Yeah. Those are always the best descriptors. Like I have no idea what, I don't know, pixies in the clouds taste like.
But this is it. This is it.
Cool. Well, this has been very informative, very fun. This is also a great wine. So what was the name of the wine again?
Lang and Reed.
Lang and Reed. So yeah, if you see it on a wine list or have the opportunity to taste it, I think it's a really interesting one. A lot more balanced, a lot more earthy plus fruity plus, some of the complexity in there. So I think this is great. And you're also really annoying for making me, drink a bunch of Napa Reds that I like after I said I don't like Napa Reds.
Yeah, I think challenging your palate is going to be some of the most fun.
That's great. Please challenge my palate, challenge my brain, challenge all of it. Always, I think it's always important, just in general, to challenge your palate, challenge the way you think about things, because opens you up to new opportunities and trying awesome stuff.
Yeah.
So appreciate it.
Wow, always a pleasure. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. Till next time.
Just juice.